All right, just rolled out of bed this morning about 9 o'clock. Got my work on, vehicle clothes on, and we're going to tear into this 5.3 today. See what it looks like inside. All right, so first thing, we'll take this big nut off, take the fan off. I already broke it loose. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but I use these channel locks, and then I squeezed with my other hand. I squeezed that belt together right there, and then I turned it. And luckily, it broke loose because sometimes these will stick, from what I'm told. But yeah, it broke loose. Now I'm just gonna unscrew it. I'm gonna take the front of the stuff off the. I'm gonna take the stuff off the front of the motor first because it's really weighing that engine stand down. It's got it bowed over, but you know, I'm not going to use the AC compressor. Those are different motor mounts, so we're not going to use that. But I'm not going to use the fan, of course. It might not. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep the power steering because honestly, not having power steering sucks, especially with that little bitty steering wheel I got. But let's finish taking this fan off. All right, I got the fan off and I put that in the not going to use any more pile because I got electric fans on the Camaro. Now I'm going to take this AC compressor off. So I'm going to unloosen the belt first, just a 3/8" drive right there. Turn it down and we can pop the belt off. And it looks like there's 3 bolts across the top and 1 on the bottom that actually goes through. That one looks like it just holds the tensioner. So I'm going to take that off next. Alright, so I figured there'd be enough slack in this belt after I took it off there. But there's not. So I can't get that. I wanted to at least get it off there, but I can't. So I went ahead and took this belt off. And then 15mm, you just tighten that and it flips down. You pull the belt off. But I'm just taking a picture of the routing. So it goes, whoop. Can't really see it that good on the camera, but down, around, up and down, around, and then back across that way. So I'll go ahead and take that off. So there were 3 bolts across the top that you had to take out and 2 on the bottom. And that takes it off the bracket. And then the bracket has a bolt there and a bolt there that you take the bracket off with. And that's for the AC compressor, which I got off, sitting down there. So I've never really worked on an LS motor, so y'all bear with me while I'm doing this. But next thing I'm going to take off is the water pump. It looks like it's just these 3 bolts on each side here. And that looks like those are the bolts for the pulley tensioner, belt pulley tensioner. And it looks like those bolts are for the, I would assume, the thermostat housing. Yeah. All right. Let's pop that off. All right, that was it. 6 bolts. They're all the same size. Always bag and mark my bolts so I don't forget where they go. The water pump came off. Now I'm going to take the accessory bracket off. So we only need to take these bolts out that go all the way through. And it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4. These don't go all the way through. They just hold the alternator. These do, so we can leave those on there. But let's take these 3 and this bottom one out and see if that'll come off all together. Alright, so it looks like there was 1 more bolt hidden over here that held the accessory bracket on. It looks like that's just like a brace for the power steering pump. So I'm going to take that one off. So the rest of these are out and it's wiggling. But yeah, that 1 bolt's holding it on. Alright, there we go. Accessory bracket's off. Just like that. And all these bolts are the same length except for that little small one that went right in there. But yeah, I'm going to take the motor mounts off next. And then take the exhaust off. And I hope none of them exhaust bolts break. I hear so many people say they have problems with the exhaust bolts breaking inside the head, and they look pretty rusty. But the thing about it is, all these bolts so far, I've had no problems with. I mean, they broke loose really easy. All of them have so far. And the only sockets I've used is a 10 millimeter and a 15 millimeter so far. So I'm going to take these motor mounts off, because I have to use different motor mounts for my car. These are truck motor mounts, it looks like, I guess. But yeah, take those off, and then and there's just 4 bolts holding those on, 2 on each side, from what I understand. But yeah, I'm gonna take those off next. All right, motor mounts are off. Just 4 bolts, 1 in each corner on both sides. And then there they set. Those are going to go in the not used pile. All right, now let's take these exhausts off. There's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts, it looks like, right here. 3, 4, 5, 6, and that should come right off. I'm gonna take the spark plugs, boots off first. This one over here, it's got the EGR on it. I believe that's what that is. So it's got a bracket holding it, 2 there, and two there. And if I reuse these for a turbo kit, I'll just get a cap for that. I'm gonna take those off next. Well, those exhaust bolts were actually kind of loose. Like I said, every bolt in this motor's breaking loose easy. But something I forgot to mention, you gotta take the old dipstick out of this side. There's 1 bolt right there that holds a bracket that goes up to the dipstick. You take that bolt out, and the dipstick should pull right out of the bottom of the block there. But we'll get that pulled out. All right, the exhaust is off on both sides. It came right off. Bolts broke loose, good. I took the spark plugs out of the other side. I'm going to go ahead and take the spark plugs out of this side. And then I'm going to take these cool packs off. Actually, I'm just going to take the valve cover off with these 4 bolts and just take it all off together. I'm going to do that on both sides. Alright, so this one was center bolt valve cover. So I just took loosened the 4 valve cover bolts and pulled the coils and everything off with it. Now we're going to take these rocker arms off and just break these loose, and this whole thing will come out together, even this little piece on the bottom here. But yeah, I'm gonna break them loose here, and move my way out, and then loosen them up. But go ahead and take those off, and then we'll take the coolant crossover out. It's just 4 bolts on each side. Take the coolant crossover out, and then we'll take the heads off and see what's down inside there. But just go over some sensors here real quick. Here's the engine coolant temperature sensor. These are NOx sensors from what I understand. This is the oil pressure sensor. This is the cam sensor. And then over here is your crank sensor on the side of the block down by where the starter would go. Right back there. And the starter wasn't on this motor, so that's another thing I'll have to buy. Motor mount, starter. Alright. Let's take these rocker arms off and the coolant crossover off. Alright. I took all the rocker arms out. Just like that. I did have to take the rocker arms out, then this piece, and then put the rocker arms back in it. But I marked this one driver. I marked the front of the head driver too. These heads are interchangeable. I'm pretty sure these are interchangeable too, but I want to make sure that I put it back together the way it was. So, all right, let's do this side. All right. Rocker arms, coolant crossover are all out. Now we can just take these push rods out and they just lift right out just like that. So we'll take all those out and then we'll take this gasket off and then we'll start taking some head bolts off, take the heads off and see what it looks like down inside there. All right. So can't take that gasket off just yet. It's held on by the head bolts. So, and these ones don't get torqued down as much as these other ones. So that's one thing I like better about the small block Chevy Gen 1, Gen 2. See, this one's only got 1, 2, 3, 5 across the bottom, 5 across the middle. Which it does look like the bolts are bigger. I'll figure that out when I take them out. But these ones are small and they don't get torqued down that much. So really there's only 10 bolts really holding all that down. Whereas on this one, there's a bunch. You know, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I counted that right. But yeah, no, I'm off because this is odd number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That's what I thought, 17. So there's 17. There's 15 on this one, but these really don't get torqued down that much. And these over here, they're all the same size. Now some are longer than others, but they're all the same size. But this one right here, as you see, only has 2 bolt mains, which that's the way most stock small block Chevy Gen 1, Gen 2s are. You'll find some with 4 bolt main. These have 6 bolt mains in them. They got 4 that hold the cap and then 2 on the sides that go into the sides. So that's a plus, definitely. But yeah, I'm gonna follow the torque sequence and just break all these loose about 1/8 a turn. Then I'll go back and turn them all about 1/4 turn. And then I'll just finish taking them out. But I gotta look up the torque sequence on this because I don't know what it is. But you usually always start with that middle bolt. So, oh, another thing. This, well, besides that one, this motor is really clean. It's a 1999 out of a Silverado 5.3. And the guy said it only had, he either said 108 or 118,000 miles. I'm not sure. It seems like an old motor for, you know, that less of miles. But it has been sitting for a while because one side of the oil pan had a mud dauber's nest on it. But, yeah, let's take these heads off. Well, let's go over the torque sequence before we take these off. So I guess it's 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then these go last. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So yeah. Alright, all the bolts are out of this head. So all the bolts were really long. And from the wetness, it does look like they go into coolant. All the bolts were really long except for these 2 outside ones. And they were this long. Now, of course, these top ones, they were really small and short, but these bottom 10 big bolts, the 2 very outside ones, was a different length right there. And the rest of them were these big long ones. But now the head can pull off. Alright, so that head's off. It looked like this cylinder right here wasn't burning as good as the rest of them. But it could have been a spark plug, could have been a spark plug wire. And that was this cylinder right here. Which, can't really see nothing from here. But all these cylinders, I mean, there's no lip at all. I mean, you can feel a small one, but there's really no lip at all. Can't really see any cross hatching anymore though. Cross hatching, whatever. I don't know. I think it would be a good idea it might be a good idea to change the rings and run a ball home through that. Need to gap the rings anyway. But let me tell y'all, or y'all tell me what you think. Do you think we should even check the ring gap? I hear some people say just send it, but I want to check the ring gap. But what's y'all's thoughts on that? Do y'all check the ring gap? Do you change the rings and gap them? Do you use the stock rings? Do you rehome the cylinders? I mean, we're definitely going to flip it over and check the bearings also. And I hear the main bolts can be reused, but I hear the rod bolts are torque to yield like the head bolts are. Torque to yield bolts, they can't be reused. See, a lot of Gen 1 head bolts, rod bolts, main bolts, they're not torque to yield and you can reuse them. I think the Gen 2 LT1 went to torque to yield, but I don't think they did that until either 94 or 96. But anyway, and that was just on the head bolts. The rod and main bolts were still non-torque to yield. And these, I guess, I know the heads are torque to yield on these. I don't know about the rod. I heard the rods were, but I heard the mains were not. But y'all correct me on that if you can. Like I said, I don't know nothing about LS engine. This is my first time really fooling with one. Besides that time I helped Austin put a cam in his. But let's go ahead and take this other head off and see what it looks like. Alright, same thing on this head. They all look like they was burning good except for that one. It was burning a little light. But looking down in the cylinders, everything looks good again. I mean, you can barely feel that with your finger, and I think that's more carbon buildup than anything, than the lip. This is the one that seemed to be burning a little light. But definitely, the cross hatchlings definitely wore out. But let's go ahead and take this, whatever this thing's called, valley tray, whatever, I don't know. Actually, we're going to take the lifter trays and the lifters out. I guess just a bolt there. It comes out, and then you can take the lifters out. That's one thing I don't care too much about on these LS motors also. You got to take the head off to change the lifters. And LS motors have problems with lifters. Whereas a small block Chevy, you just take the intake out, and boom, there's the lifters. There's the lifter boards. The lifters go in them holes. So you just have to take the intake out, done. Over here, you got to take the whole head off. The intake, the head, everything. Over here, you take a valve cover off, take your rocker off, your push rods, and the intake. Boom, you're there. But yeah, let's go ahead and take the lifters and lifter trays out, and then this off. Then we'll take this balancer off. And then we can flip it over and get the oil pan off of it. Actually, we'll take the lifter trays, this balancer, and then we'll take the timing cover and the rear cover off if I can get a socket in there. Yeah, I think I can get in there. That way we can get to the crank. Probably don't even need to take these off. Yeah, we'll flip it over and then we'll take some main caps off and see what the bearings look like first anyway. Also, I took the plugs out. And none of them really look that bad. Except for maybe that one. It's a little wet looking. Other than that, the rest of them look pretty good. Oh, another thing. Forgot to mention these little dowel pins or whatever. Be aware of those because they all came out with the head except for this one. And you got to have these when you put the head back on because that's what lines everything up. And that's how you tell if it's a 5.3. It's got a disc piston. The 4.8s have a flat top. And the reason for that is the blocks are the same, the bore's the same. The 5.3 just has a longer stroke on the crank, which creates more compression. So they put a disc piston on the 5.3. You got more displacement in the same size head chamber, and the same thickness gaskets. The more displacement motor is going to create more compression. There's just more air in there to compress. But now that can be misleading because I read that some high output 5.3s had the flat top pistons. So if that's the case, you got to measure the stroke. You can just turn the motor over and measure the stroke from the piston to the top of the chamber, or top of the head surface. Or you can get the part number off the crank or measure the crank itself. And I don't know, I forgot what the numbers are on that, but yeah, this is a 5.3. All right, there we go. Lifters and lifter trays are out. You just take that one bolt out, this lifter tray comes out. Take that bolt out, this lifter tray comes out, and then you can reach in there and pull the lifters out. Now it's hard for me to get my hand in there. So I used the needle nose pliers just to grab onto the tip of them. And some of them didn't want to pull right out. Some of them I had to pull out a little, spin a little, pull, spin, and then they finally came out. But yeah, so pull, spin if they get stuck. Yeah, all right, take this off. Well, I got the valley tray out, and I tell you what, that was not easy. So the first thing you gotta do is you gotta take these rubber seals out of the top of it, and they just pull right out. And then you slide them up the wire some. The problem is you have to pinch these right here to make these two side clips bow out so you can unplug it. But now the problem is the knock sensors are way down in this hole, so's the plug-in. You can't get your hands in there. So what I did is I put a pair of needle nose pliers and I squeezed it and kind of pried up like that. And this one come off easy. But this back one, I guess I didn't have a good bite on it. I broke the top of the knock sensor. Now, even after that, I couldn't pry this thing off. Apparently, this one, this rubber seal, keeps water, I guess, from going down in here. It glued itself to this shaft the knock sensor goes in. So I'll have to clean that off. But yeah, I had to take this big pry bar. I used a screwdriver and pried from the sides and got it up so high, and then I stuck this bar in there. And I heard something popping and cracking. I was like, oh man, I hope that ain't breaking that. But it was that was popping and cracking the seal. It's supposed to slide off of that, and it would not slide off of it. So it just wound up breaking itself right there. So I had to get in one of those. I was going to get all new gaskets and everything to put in this thing anyway. But, whew, what a nightmare. That was hard. That was a pain in the butt. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take this balancer off, and I'm going to take the timing cover off. I'm going to take the timing gear out, and I'm going to pull the cam out, because I want to see what the cam bearings look like. I've heard on these motors the cam bearings wear pretty quickly for some reason. But it's Mother's Day, so I'm going to go take a shower and go do Mother's Day stuff for a little while, and come back and probably work on it. If not, I'll work on it a little tomorrow. But first, I'm going to turn the motor over till each piston goes all the way down. I'm going to put Vaseline in the cylinders so the cylinders don't rust on me. Definitely don't want that to happen.